Good night, good night, good night, everyone. This is the attorney Sheldon Washington here on 107.1 FM, Bench Chop Radio. Good night and welcome to all of you. I will be your co host tonight, along with my co host, Wayne Caesar. It's a pleasure to be here tonight hosting this program. Mark is not here tonight, your regular host, but I will be co hosting again with Wayne Caesar tonight. Good night to everyone and welcome to tonight's program. You are in for a treat. You can go ahead and share the live, share the link tonight as we get our audience up. And we will be discussing some really serious issues tonight. Before we get into the program, I'm going to go to a quick commercial and then we will be right back with tonight's program. As I said, guys, tonight you are in for a treat. It's going to be some major issues we will be discussing tonight. And I hope you guys will enjoy tonight's program. Share the live, share the link. Let's get the audience up. Let's get our viewers up as we will get into it later tonight with my co-host, Wayne. So, this is attorney Sheldon Washington, owner and founder of the Washington Law Firm, located at 455 Utica Avenue in Brooklyn, New York. We're specialized in medical malpractice, personal injuries, matrimonial law, and landlord and tenant. If you're in need of legal representation, please give us a call today. The number to call is 718-877-3100. Consultation is free at no cost to you. So call us today to see if we can be of any assistance to your legal needs. Again, the phone number to call us is 718-877-3100. Welcome back, guys. Welcome back. And once again, good night to those of you who are now joining us. Welcome to 107.1 FM Bench Chop Radio. I have here tonight with me my co-host, Wayne Caesar. I'm your co-host with him, attorney Sheldon Washington. Welcome again tonight, guys. We will be discussing some serious issues that are affecting Guyanese, not just in Guyana, but all over the world. Welcome. Good night to you, Wayne Caesar.
A pleasant good evening to you, Sheldon, and a pleasant good evening to all our listeners and viewers out there. It's Friday night, and let's rock and roll here. Over to you, Sheldon. Let's go. Yep.
That's right, guys. Tonight we're discussing a serious issue that appear in the Wall Street Journal. We're going to be discussing an issue there's an article written today in the Wall Street Journal. This is regarding ExxonMobil. And we want to get this message out to all of you. We want you to pay attention to the corrupt practices of the PPP regime. Now, we're going to pay attention to something that ExxonMobil is doing in the United States, and it is affecting the Guyanese people. So we're going to take you straight into the program without any delays. We're going to show you something tonight that is happening in Guyana, and we want you guys to pay attention and take it in. If you haven't read about it earlier today, now is the opportunity. I want you guys to look at this. This is a statement. This was an article written again. Actually, this is not the one that I wanted to talk to you about. Let's get to the one that we need to talk about. Let's get the operator to pull the right. This is the Wall Street Journal article that we were talking to you about earlier. We're going to leave the Wall Street Journal article. We're going to get back to it in a few minutes because for some reason, I don't know what's going on behind the scene with our operator, but we're going to get back to that in a minute. But let's focus on this audit that was written about in the Stabrook News today. This is a statement regarding ExxonMobil expenses. And guys, we want you to pay attention because for the longest while, the people of Guyana were talking about this. and it was being ignored. The government of Guyana stood behind the audit. They said the audit was fair, it was correct. Now, I want you to pay attention at what has happened, this new development that only became public yesterday. They said in Guyana, and this was in the Starbuck News today, they said the Minister of Natural Resources, Vikram Bharat, Member of Parliament, endorsed the position outlined by the Honorable Vice President Bar Jagdio that the Guyana Revenue Authority is the competent authority to lead all audits for expenses incurred by ExxonMobil. Right now, they're saying now they came out this morning. The same minister came out this morning, and he said that the audit show that ExxonMobil over or exaggerated for the longest while. It's been exaggerating its expenses all the way from 1999 to 2017. That's what the report said, that ExxonMobil the entire time has been exaggerating its expenses. And therefore, if the expenses are exaggerated, it means that the income is going to be less. Now, as you guys know, ExxonMobil has to pay taxes. And for those of you who don't know how the taxes work, and I mean, we have the expert on taxes here, he can break it down to you. Now, your expenses are deductible. When it's a corporation, all the corporate expenses are deducted. And then whatever the income is left, that's what is taxable. Your expenses are not deemed taxable because those are what is called your operational costs. Now, ExxonMobil, look at this, the record. It says all the way from 1999 till 2017, ExxonMobil has been lying to the Guyanese public, misrepresenting facts, misrepresenting records, and I'm not sure what they're doing with their tax records, how they're cooking the books. We said cooking the books, that's how we refer to it. But ExxonMobil for the whole time pull a veil over the eyes of the government of Guyana, and they've been cooking the books. No, I don't want to necessarily say pull a veil, because we already know that the government of Guyana is in cahoots with ExxonMobil with engaging in illicit conduct. Now, when I want you to explain or exaggerate, let me hear your views on what you think is happening here that caused ExxonMobil from 1999 all the way to 2017 to be able to exaggerate its expenses in Guyana.
Well, listen. So, Sheldon, oil and the production of oil, right? It's not an industry that would have existed in Guyana before 1999, right? So here's an opportunity, because this is a new venture, basically. Guyana have never had an oil venture before. So this is a new venture. So here's an opportunity for Exxon to come and lay on the table, what their approach is going to be. Now it's upon the individuals in charge of that industry in Guyana, from government right down, you understand me, to do their homework and to get a good understanding, to be edified on how the oil industry operates, right? But Sheldon, how you would have broken it down also is generally how businesses operate. Your expenses are put against your revenues, right? And then we determine from there what is taxable income and what is not non-taxable income. We know that expenses are not taxable. Okay, so if Exxon is overstating their expenses, right? Remember, Exxon is a US-based company, right, Sheldon? They would be liable for paying taxes in this country. But if you can overstate your expenses in Guyana, and you can get away with it, when you come and you put your documents, right? Your reports, basically, your tax reports, because you're going to use your audit reports, among other reports, in order to prepare your tax returns, because that is where the numbers are, your ledgers and all these different things. That's where the numbers are. And if your expenses, if your income, let's say your income, let's just use a small number, is $1,000, and your expenses is $850. Then you're only paying taxes on $150. So to the extent that they're overstating the expenses, Sheldon, it really looks good for them when it comes to filing taxes. They're in a very, very good position because all corporations try to pay as little taxes as possible. That's why they come together and they bring forward their NOLs. They bring forth all the different expenses, research and development expenses. All these expenses are put on the books and then is placed against their revenues. And that is when we determine their taxable income. So Exxon is putting themselves in a great position here. How authentic this information is, where they're saying, where they're reporting their expenses, and now the Guyana Revenue Authority is saying that they're overstating their expenses. That is actually an offense. That is actually an offense. And Sheldon, something like this can raise a red flag and they can be investigated by the SEC. And I did say that before. Maybe the SEC needs to look into Exxon practices in Guyana. Over to you, Sheldon.
You see, the problem with that, and the audience need to understand, is that the SEC regulates securities and ensure fair dealings for investors in the United States. The SEC is restricted to its jurisdiction and has no jurisdiction over Mobil Exxon and its dealing in Guyana. Now, if Guyana had proper regulatory bodies who can regulate the dealings of Mobil Exxon in Guyana, because the only investor in ExxonMobil, or the only body that is dealing with Mobil Exxon in Guyana, is really the government of Guyana. ExxonMobil has been in Guyana for a very long time. They haven't been there at the extent that they are right now, where they're drilling and producing oil in the manner that they are right now. But they've been there exporting oil to Guyana, selling oil to Guyana. So they've been in Guyana. Their presence has been there for a very, very long time. So we look and we see at the point where we weren't making that much money in Guyana as we are now, because oil was discovered. Because the oil is discovered now, there's much, much more money to be made. And I think one of the things is right now, because there's so much money, there's so much more opportunity for ExxonMobil to now exploit the people of Guyana by claiming more expenses, exaggerate their expenses even more, and make it to be what it's really not. So instead of, if let's say ExxonMobil is making $10 billion in 1 month, and I know that's a very, very low number, but let's just say that's the number. ExxonMobil is saying 75% of that income is being used towards expenses. They're claiming it as expenses. You do the math. 75% of that amount goes towards expenses, and then the 25% is what ExxonMobil is telling the Guyanese people, this is what we have as income, and out of this is what we're going to pay the taxes for. Now, if that is happening, think about the revenue that we're losing. Think about the money that Guyanese are losing just because ExxonMobil is dealing in a particular way that is not right. They're not engaging in fair dealing. You see, when ExxonMobil is in the United States, they're restricted by rules and regulation. The SEC heavily regulates them because they trade their stocks on the stock market. It's sold at the stock market. So therefore, they're subjected to the regulations and the rules under the SEC. But when it comes to Guyana, ExxonMobil is not heavily regulated. And as you can see, the government of Guyana has agreed to settle the tax debt that ExxonMobil owed to the people of Guyana. They've settled it for way less than they would have owed the people of Guyana. So that's revenue taken away from us. That's money that is gone. And, that's money that could have been used to develop our country, infrastructure, provide job, provide various things to help the people of Guyana. But instead, this is what is happening right now. Our money, our income we're being robbed of it by ExxonMobil. And there's another issue other than the audit that, and by the way, people, just note that when the result of the audit was announced at 12 a.m., when no one is up, and it wasn't an emergency. So the Minister of Natural Resources, Wayne, came out at 12 a.m. in the morning and made that announcement because it's believed that he didn't want the people of Guyana to be properly informed. Because if you make an announcement or a press release at that time, who is watching the news? Who is reading anything at that time of the morning? Chances are it's going to slip under the rug because people are not up at 12 a.m. in the morning to hear you make an announcement that we found there's finding that ExxonMobil was for the entire time from 1999 to 2017 exaggerating their expenses. So you can imagine what ExxonMobil is doing right now. Just think about it. Imagine what ExxonMobil is doing right now. And there's another problem because if we're thinking ExxonMobil is doing that, there's the Wall Street Journal article that I was telling you guys about earlier. Now, the Wall Street Journal released an article claiming that ExxonMobil has been exaggerating an asset in the Permian Basin. Okay, they've been exaggerating an asset in the Permian Basin, and the Permian Basin is in the United States. But the SEC caught wind of that. So the SEC is aware of that. And, the SEC is going to do their investigation and make their findings and their determination. Now, Wayne, I want to ask you, if ExxonMobil can exaggerate an asset in the United States, do you believe that Exxon dealings will be fair with the government of Guyana? I don't know if we lost Wayne there. I think we lost Wayne. I think he's frozen. So while Wayne comes back, I think Wayne is frozen for some reason. I think there's some sort of technical issue there with Wayne. Until Wayne comes back, let's talk about this a little bit more. ExxonMobil as and if you read the Wall Street Journal today, you would have seen that story that ExxonMobil exaggerated an asset in the Permian Basin in the United States. Now, my take is if ExxonMobil is going to go to that extent to exaggerate an income, and they're in the United States where they're heavily regulated, let's think about what ExxonMobil is doing in Guyana, a country that is lack in terms of regulations on foreign countries, lack the ability to control its dealings with ExxonMobil because we have a government that sits there in corrupt practices and condones ExxonMobil's actions in terms of robbing, disenfranchising the people of Guyana, not paying their fair taxes. ExxonMobil is not paying their fair share of taxes, while the ordinary people in Guyana, they're made to pay for the consequences. Because while the government of Guyana sits idly, not taking money, not taking the amount of revenue that is owed to the people of Guyana, you have the ordinary man there. He's starving. He doesn't have a job. We lack the job opportunities we need, while the government of Guyana is claiming that they're bringing in workers from other countries. They sit there idly, allowing our money to be drained from foreign companies, allowing these foreign companies to come and steal the wealth of the people of Guyana while they sit there idly, not doing anything about it. For years, they lie to the people and they support the audits of ExxonMobil, claiming that ExxonMobil was doing the right thing and that the audit was correct. Now they shamefully came out and tell the people of Guyana they didn't even want to come out. They didn't even want to come out and tell the people of Guyana the truth about the situation. So imagine if they're heavily regulated in the United States. Imagine what they're doing in Guyana, where we have no regulations. We have a corrupt PPP government who sits there and doesn't care about the people of Guyana. When I was asking you earlier before you experienced some sort of, are you there, Wayne?
Internet, yes, I'm here, Sheldon, yes.
Okay, before you experience some sort of technical issue, I was asking you, what is your take on ExxonMobil lying, exaggerating an asset in the United States? If you believe that ExxonMobil will be able to deal fairly with the government of Guyana, what is your take about their interaction, their fair dealings with the people of Guyana?
Well, Sheldon, first of all, it takes some real guts to overstate an asset in this country the way things are regulated here by the Securities and Exchange Commission. But if they can do that here, figure what they would do in a third world country, where, as you would have quoted us saying earlier, those regulations does not exist. So it's going to be a cakewalk for a company as large as Exxon. And listen, when we look at the bottom line of these companies, it's just like let's just piggyback a little bit on Donald Trump and how he was overstating, the value of his real estate, the stuff that he held in real estate, whether it was hotels, whether it was golf courses, whatever it was, he was just overstating. So you had all this inflated value on assets that was not authentic. It wasn't real, and what that does, Shalon, it triggers investors because they're like, okay, look at this. This is excellent. We're going to get a good return on our investment. So it causes people to invest. It's kind of like a Ponzi scheme, but you're doing it in an investing way. You're inflating your investment and you're triggering a good earning per share. That's what X and listen, Shalon, this may go up the ladder where the SEC may even take a look at their stock that is on the stock exchange. So they have to be very, very careful. You cannot overstate things. And then, Shalon, to get that big break in Guyana where they're inflating the expenses, right? They're getting away with more to there. They're able to use that additional, Shalon, that additional revenue to allocate it other places that they're actually in debt. So if you're able to do that, then your bottom line really looks good. Your profit margin is attractive, So these people know what they're doing. They know exactly what they're doing. And it's not right. And the government of Guyana, the installed government of Guyana, Shalon, I find it so hard pressed to call these people that sits there a government, because government is there to serve the people. And can you tell me what service you see that's going to the Guyanese people? In my estimation, absolutely nothing. And that's why I keep pleading all the time that the people need to open their eyes to what's happening in Guyana. And Sheldon, I just want to touch on one quick thing before I hand back over to you. You notice on this show, and these people watch this show all the time, how I know this is because I would have talked about the value of the Guyana dollar not increasing. We're not seeing any movement when it comes to the value of the Guyana dollar, but yet they're talking about Guyana is one of the fastest growing economies. Now, if an economy is growing, you should see some sort of change in the value of the dollar. And we are just not seeing that in Guyana. And also, how you measure growth in an economy is by employment. Also, there are so many different things that you use to measure the growth of an economy. But Shalon, I think everybody's just looking at the popular thing right now, the oil boom in Guyana. Over to you, Shalon.
I don't think we could reference, that's what people say, but I don't think it's rightfully an oil boom, because if you want to talk about an oil boom, oil means money. But the recent studies are showing that in a few decades from now, oil will not be the stock of choice. It will not be the investment of choice because, as you know, ExxonMobil has been public, well, not really publicly, but privately, they try to downplay the global effect of oil on the environment, of, burning oil, as you use it for driving and other uses. They are downplaying the seriousness of the pollution and the destruction that oil is doing to the environment. So in a few decades from now, oil will not be the fuel of choice. And a lot of people are switching over from cars that use gas to ones that use electric. As you know, some states are planning to switch over entirely starting in the year, I think 2034. They will not be selling gasoline cars. So I think what ExxonMobil is doing right now is taking as much as it can. It's grabbing as much as it can right now from Guyana, from the people of Guyana, so that when the time comes, it wouldn't be a problem. They're snatching up all that they can, all the money, all the wealth that they can, while the government sit and they're asleep. The government of Guyana is asleep while ExxonMobil is robbing you blindly, taking all the wealth from Guyana and lying to the people of Guyana, lying to the GRA. If GRA cannot do its job, get through the audits, and frequently, the IRS frequently audit these large corporations. If ExxonMobil was doing that in America, they would have been exposed. They would have been in jail. A lot of those top CEOs would have been in jail by now. You see what's happening with Donald Trump with his taxes. So there's constant audit. You don't wait to audit somebody from 1999 all the way to 2017, then to discover that they were inflating their expenses. Those are things that are ongoing. This is a huge corporation. Its presence is in Guyana. It's taking money from our economy. And if it's doing that, then GRA has to do frequent checks to ensure that ExxonMobil is telling the truth about its expenses. If it's not, that's a breach of their contract already. And the people of Guyana could breach its contract back with ExxonMobil. That is a breach. Essentially, if you're lying to the people of Guyana, you're telling them that these are my expenses when it's not, so that you can only give them 25% of the revenue, pay taxes on 25% of your earnings. That cannot work. That's a breach. That's a violation of any contract. And the people of Guyana, that gives grounds to terminate the agreement with ExxonMobil. And I think Guyanese need to wake up. The government is asleep. They're asleep on ExxonMobil while ExxonMobil is raping and robbing you all over again. It's a form of slavery all over again. The people of Ghana, wake up and do something. That contract is already breached. And I think the next administration that goes into power, they need to take over and terminate that contract with ExxonMobil. Wayne, I think the most fair thing to do at this point to correct this inequity with ExxonMobil and Guyana is to terminate the contract and bring a new oil company that will do equity to the people of Guyana, because ExxonMobil is certainly not it. I don't know if you have a different take on this, Wayne.
Well, you know something, Sheldon? I agree with you with terminating the contract. As far as bringing in a new oil company, not necessarily. They can come back to the table, Sheldon, with good faith, and let's have a better deal. A deal that brings, some value to the Guyanese people. This deal is bringing absolutely nothing to the people. And Sheldon, I agree with you. The government is asleep. They are asleep when it comes to the Guyanese people. They're not asleep when it comes to ExxonMobil. They're working with ExxonMobil. They're getting rich. The people in government, they're the ones that are getting rich. When Guyana falls after Exxon pulls out, after they've done taking away all the wealth out of the country, they are going to run away and go somewhere and live and be gone with all the money that belongs to the people of Guyana. So you see, that's an issue, that the people need to start looking at and understand that they need a change at the top. Listen, Sheldon, you don't want to know that when you go into an election and when you go and exercise your democratic right, Sheldon, and vote, you want to know that you're not voting for the next 60 plus rich people in the country. You want to know that you're voting for people who are going to work for you, not people who are going to go there and get rich. You know what I'm saying? Because if you agree to a certain salary, man, go and sit down, serve the people, and collect your salary. Be honest. But I find it hard to find honest politicians in Guyana these days. Everybody's out for something. And that's why we're here to try our best to hold people accountable. And then, Sheldon, I want to quickly touch on GRA. GRA should be allowed to operate autonomously. If they feel there's a red flag, if they feel something does not look good, they should be able to go, Sheldon, and conduct an audit. I know you will agree with me on this because they're the expert in it. They would know. They don't need approval from Barajagdio Sheldon. That doesn't look good. That shows that the body is not operating independent. And the body is not independent in fact and appearance, which they should be. So these type of practices is concerning. And that's the thing with the with this installed government, Sheldon. They are spreading their wings all over, seeking to gain control of everything. And essentially, they're going to cripple the financial industry in Guyana, where it's going to be fully controlled by them. So in a way, it will be crippled. Over to you, Sheldon.
Crippled indeed, Wayne. ExxonMobil is impoverishing the people of Guyana. And the way we know that they're impoverishing the people of Guyana is because only 25% of their earnings is taxed in Guyana. They're impoverishing the people of Guyana while all that wealth is sent over to their country, and that's where that money is being spent in the United States. The United States is gaining while Guyana is losing, while Guyanese are losing. They're not gaining the benefit of that wealth. Guyanese are not getting the oil money. The oil money is not being used for infrastructure. It's not used to create employment. It's not used to create benefits. Guyanese doesn't have any other benefits other than maybe the old age pension and a few other things that the government tries to do. But nothing is the government doing for the people of Guyana with that oil money. All that money, the limited amount that comes to the people of Guyana, all that it's being used to is to fill the pocket of the government and their associates. We saw the other night when I was on the show with Mark Benchchop that there's a special counsel hired to prosecute innocent Guyanese people. That's where the money is going. You see, the money is going to their friends, to their associates. It's not being used to uplift the poor, the people who are impoverished. It's not being used for that. It's not creating jobs. Look at it. They're claiming that the economy is going, but look at the statistics. Where is the government of Guyana creating new jobs for the poor people? Where are they creating welfare benefits to benefit the poor? Where are they creating scholarships for students who are unable to pay for their education? Where are they creating free education, period? They took it away. Free education from nursery to university given to us by the late LF for Samson Burnham. But the government in Guyana, they're taking from you, taking everything, taking your free education, taking your resources that you could have been using to uplift yourself, and they're impoverishing you. They're keeping you in debt, keeping you in poverty, refusing to give loans to Afro-Guyanese, refusing to give money to allow Afro-Guyanese to uplift themselves in businesses or to create their own jobs. Yet, they're claiming that Guyana, the economy is one of the fastest growing. How is it the fastest growing? I spoke to a client of mine recently. She is not even Afro-Guyanese, she's Indo-Guyanese, and she is running from Guyana. She said it's difficult. She said the government of Guyana is only giving jobs to the people that they know. And she said she's feeling the squeeze because she is a U.S. Citizen of the United States, and she's coming back. She's been in Guyana, living there for a while, and now she's like, I'm running. I have to get out because they're not creating job opportunities for me. There's nothing here for me. And I believe a lot of the times the Guyanese don't want to leave our country, but we have to. You're forced to, because the government sits there complacent and sleeping in the bed with Mobil Exxon and cahoots in with them, colluding with them to do corruption, to engage in corrupt practices, and to impoverish you by refusing to allow the wealth to siphon down. Which brings me to another issue with Afran Ali. When there's been an article I seen published about Barrett Jagdeo coming to the United States to have a meeting with the Congressional Black Caucus. I've seen this, I've read it, and I was surprised at what he was telling, what he was saying. Look at it. He had a meeting with the Congressional Black Caucus, highly informative, he claimed. Now, tell me, how are you coming and meeting with the Black Caucus in the United States and you're doing nothing, absolutely nothing? You're sleeping in the bed with Mobil Exxon and all the corrupt
companies that comes here to Guyana just to take the resources and run. But you're coming here to the United States and you're talking about what you're doing. What are you doing to encourage diversity in Guyana? What are you doing to encourage upliftment of Black Afro-Guyanese? What is it he's doing? When I want you to tell the public your take on this. What do you think about Afrinali coming here and meeting with the having a meeting with the Black Caucus, and then going back home and claiming that it was highly informative while he subdued Afro-Guyanese and refused to allow them a seat at the table?
Well, listen, with how the whole meeting was set up, Sheldon, I totally disagree with it. I think if there's an issue between two parties and you're going to intercede and have a meeting, you should have a meeting with both parties. So basically what would have happened yesterday is that the PPPC, the installed PPPC dictatorship, got a first shot to clear their name before the actual meeting, because there is a meeting scheduled for Washington coming up soon, that the opposition is going to be at the table, but they get an opportunity up front to try to clear their name and try to put themselves as if they are a caring government. This government, this installed government, is so far from caring, Sheldon. It's shameful. It's disgraceful. All that they've done is marginalize and impoverish the people of Guyana. There's a huge, massive imbalance when it comes to the distribution of wealth across the country. People who do not support the PPPC and their wicked ways are set to the side, while the people who support them is getting handouts in the community. They're bailing out Gaisuko over and over again, while our nurses continue to look after their patients and continues to work diligently on a salary that, is so poor. It's so poor. Listen, Sheldon, it's so poor that if I look at a nurse and I look at a sugar worker, I'm telling you, man, I'm going to cut that cane, Sheldon. I am going and cut that cane because that's the better bet. And then, Sheldon, you know what is so hurtful, man? Our teachers, man. Teachers are a third parent. When that student leaves the home and goes to school, there is a parent waiting in that classroom for them. And it's shocking, to see how our teachers across Guyana is treated. And then when our kids go and they do so well on the C6 amongst other examinations, Priya Manichan comes and she puts it out there. Hey, it's not about you. It's those teachers who would have excelled. It's not the government that would have excelled. Those teachers have to buy supplies on their own. Some of the children, teachers buy lunch for children and all that, because, Sheldon, let me tell you something, man. The parents in Guyana, they are really struggling. And in Guyana, we have some parents, we are accustomed to big families in Guyana. And that is still the case. I have spoken to people who have 5 and 6 children, and it's barely in their late 30s. And hey, come on. People have children, they have children. It's not us to decide how many children people have, But we have a country, Sheldon, with less than 1 million people, okay? And a lot of revenue flowing through it. You got to remember this, Sheldon. Our gold and diamond and these things are not hitting the Guyana gold board the way they should. Sheldon, to be honest with you, we should be having a gold reserve, Sheldon, that backs the Guyana dollar. And then we would see where the value of our dollar will go. If we back it with gold and an oil reserve, you would see where our money go. These guys are not smart. Over to you, Sheldon.
Absolutely, Wayne. It's amazing. It's amazing that Afrinali would go and have a meeting with the Congressional Black Caucus, and then report that it was highly informative. It was welcome and highly informative. I'm not understanding how could it be welcome and highly informative when the Afro-Guyanese in your own country, in your home country, are not getting a seat at the table, but yet he's going and meet with the Black Caucus and he's reporting about developments and the policies in Guyana and that he's transforming and doing all these things in Guyana, which is all, by the way, it's a lie. It's fabricated, and the people need to know and understand that this is just a show. It's just a show to cause you to believe that he is interested in the welfare or the well-being of Afro-Guyanese when he's really not. The interest of the Afro-Guyanese is not a forefront point for Afenali. Afenali doesn't care about the Afro-Guyanese. So him going and meeting with the Black Caucus, it's just a front, it's a facade, and it has no weight or no merit. So I'm not sure why he even met with them to bring a false or paint a false picture as if Guyana have any diversity, any program or any policies that encourages diversity. Guyana just, all it does is focus on one ethnic group that has the seat at the table, goes to all of the events, goes to all of the conferences, and we neglect the Afro-Guyanese. Afro-Nalis, the policies of the PPP is not one of diversity. It's not all inclusive. So, if we have a government that is not all inclusive, then they're going to neglect a certain member or group of the population, which we're seeing. And this is why we see poverty in the areas that are predominantly Afro-Guyanese or APNU supporters. In a lot of instances, as long as you don't support their policies, they don't support you. So there's widespread unemployment, widespread neglect. No funds are being put into those communities that has a certain group of people that does not support the policies of Afenali. So therefore, when it comes to going and having a conversation about diversity or about inclusiveness of ethnic groups, I don't think Afenali is the person for that. He should not have a seat at that particular table, period, until he learns policy. I think there's an easy way for the people of Guyana to solve these issues that we're seeing and we're experiencing. One of the easy ways to solve it is to get Afenali and the PPP out of power. They need to be removed in the next election. You need to go vote and vote the correct way to fix this problem. All right. So it's now 9:42. It's 42 minutes after 9 o'clock. When we're moving up, we're going to take a short commercial break, and we will be right back.
So this is attorney Sheldon Washington, owner and founder of the Washington Law Firm, located at 455 Utica Avenue in Brooklyn, New York. We're specialized in medical malpractice, personal injuries, matrimonial law, and landlord and tenant. If you're in need of legal representation, please give us a call today. The number to call is 718-877-3100. Consultation is free at no cost to you. So call us today to see if we can be of any assistance to your legal needs. Again, the phone number to call us is 718-877-3100. And we're back live. It's now 9:43 p.m. I'm your host, Sheldon Washington, here with my co-host, Wayne Caesar. Wayne, you wanted to speak before we take that quick break. Go ahead, Wayne.
Yes. Sheldon, the Congressional Black Caucus getting involved in this and willing to have the installed government come over to sit with them and have a meeting. My thing with that would be, how in depth are they going to get involved in this? Because some of these things are just farces, right? They get involved and then, it just goes quiet. And it's just something to show, well, okay, the Congressional, you heard it, Congressional Black. So they could say, hey, if nothing is done about this, the installed government could say, well, hey, look, we met with the Congressional Black Caucus in the United States of America, and they were okay with our practices. Now, I'm going to say this. The Congressional Black Caucus, to the extent that they're involved in this now, need to put together a delegation and send them down to Guyana, let them get on the ground amongst the people and get the real feel for the people in Guyana. That is real in-depth evidence right there. You can't sit up on your high throne and have a government that is oppressing people, come and you guys sit down and dine and have your wine and have all of this and have them elaborate on behalf of those people. You need to hear directly from the horse's mouth. You know, Sheldon, I listen, these congressional black caucuses and these things, while I respect people, I look at your practices and I have my own objections about the practices of these people and what they really stands for based on some of the decisions that they make. So I'm sitting back here and I'm waiting to see what decision is made in relation to the people of Guyana, because this installed government does not represent the people of Guyana, Sheldon. They were not duly elected there. They were placed there by the ABC countries, by the large economies in the world. They were put there to oppress and suppress the people so that these economies could come and take all the wealth out of the country. If this was not the case, Sheldon, the Guyanese people would have been living better and not below the poverty line. And I hope the world is looking at this, because this is the way that the world has been operating, and it has to stop. You know, we are all human beings here. Everyone deserves a proper life. If you want to have an exchange and you want to do business, you know, do some kind of oversight. Make sure that what that country is gaining, because the United States of America is one of the countries that is deemed one of the policing countries of the world, Sheldon. So if you're going to be dealing with Guyana, do some measure of oversight to make sure that some of the profits, some of the revenue that's coming into the country is actually hitting the people. That way you wouldn't have people running from Guyana and going all over the place, Sheldon. Over to you.
You know, that reminds me of, there's a book, oh, Europe Underdeveloped Africa. And it brings me to the same situation with Guyana. You know, oh, ExxonMobil is underdeveloping Guyana by extracting all of their resources, the most expensive resource that we have right now. Well, one of the most expensive resources that we have right now is the oil. And ExxonMobil is extracting all of it and impoverishing Guyanese, while the president of Guyana, Afrin Ali, sits there idly, not understanding his role, not knowing what to do to save Guyana. ExxonMobil has already breached this contract by not dealing fairly with Guyana, and Guyana needs to terminate that contract. I propose a termination of that contract and then restart. Either Guyana develop its own oil company, or if you don't want to, if the government don't want to do that, then bring a company that you can negotiate a fair arrangement with, versus the one that you have with ExxonMobil, who keeps impoverishing the people of Guyana. That brings me to another issue, Wayne. You know, if ExxonMobil is impoverishing Guyanese, then there's the other problem with the inflation that is happening right now. The resources, the cost of living, the unemployment, which is really, really high. And you're still telling the people, you're falsely telling Guyanese that it's the fastest growing economy. How is it the fastest growing economy? Show us the statistics, show us the facts. There's none. There's a large scale unemployment, especially in regions like Linden, like some parts of New Amsterdam, you know, the parts that are predominantly APNU supporters, even Georgetown. Even in Georgetown, and the cost of living is going up. Mark, Wayne, give the audience your take on the issue with the cost of living and how you think ExxonMobil's role plays into that.
Cost of living, Sheldon, you want to talk about that? Okay. I got a little list here. 2 boxes of mac and cheese, Sheldon, $520. What we have here? 10 pounds of sugar, Sheldon, $1,600. Okay. 1 pack of soap powder. Wow. $1,860. We might as well round that, Sheldon, to $2,000, because $140 is worth absolutely nothing in Guyana. Right? 1 Colgate toothpaste, a tube of toothpaste, $1,080. Okay.
The thing is, Wayne, a lot of those costs wouldn't make sense unless you're living in Guyana. But for those of us who are here,
the dollar exchange. It would exceed the cost you would pay if you were here in the United States, or in some instances it would equal what you're paying here. And mind you, the wage difference is
That's
vast.
it.
It's vastly different.
That's it.
The Guyanese earning in Guyana, the average wage, I think, is like $60,000 or some ridiculous number like that, which would be equivalent to about 200 US dollars a month, which is really no type of wage. If you're earning $350 a month, US dollars a month, or even 400 US dollars a month, that is in no way equivalent to your similar colleague working in the United States doing the same job and the same job functions as you are. Your wages is really significantly lower. There's a big disparity. So if you have a disparity in wages, but then you have the situation where the cost of living is a par, or even in some instances it's even higher, because let's be real, everything in Guyana is being exported, imported from the United States, imported from China, imported from all over the place. The last time I went to Guyana in 2021, I was surprised. I walked into the store and I'm looking for all these things that I miss in Guyana, and I go to the stores and I'm seeing a whole lot of American-made brand cereal. And by the way, Guyanese people don't know, but half of those products are added with additives and chemicals and a whole lot of red 40 and red yellow 5 and all of these things. And those things are dangerous, very, very dangerous for human consumption. But they don't know. A lot of these foods we avoid in America. If you could afford it, you avoid it. What you do, you just go and you buy stuff from the whole food market because But in Guyana, they're nonetheless wiser. They go and they buy the farm-made food because they think it's good for them. When in essence, it's really not. You shouldn't even be buying anything that you see foreign and was made in the United States unless you read the label. Pay attention to the labels, and the big gap, the big disparity with the income makes it difficult for the ordinary Guyanese to survive, to afford food. And the solution, mind you, is right in front of every Guyanese face. Farm, go farm, create your own food, make your own food by farming. You have land, you have a backyard farm. Do not go to the foreign supermarkets, the stores that sell foreign food and buy those foods. You are eating poison and you don't even know it because of the things that are added to those food, Wayne.
Yeah, Sheldon, you're right on point. How could we always have enough chicken to supply everybody with chicken? Those chickens have to be injected, Sheldon, in order to mature faster so that we could consistently have meat for people to eat. That's why I try to, whenever I eat chicken, Sheldon, I try to stay away as much as possible from that chicken breast because that's where the injection hits. And you don't want to be eating too much of that stuff, man. And you're right, Sheldon. People see food or canned food coming from quote unquote the United States of America. They get kind of excited. Oh, this is coming from America. Well, no, not everything that comes from America is good, man. The same little okra and boron, the stuff that you plant in your backyard with no fertilizer, that's what you call real organic, healthy eating right there. And Sheldon, I want to really quickly touch on what you was touching on. When we talk about the disparity, between cost of living and the earnings of individuals, it cannot even be on par. They need to, when you talk about Guyana, it needs to be a bit over par as to what people are earning, Sheldon, because you know what? Everybody is entitled to have a bit of disposable income that they could say, hey, kids, we're going on a vacation. We're going to an island in the Essequibo River, or we're traveling to Barbados, or Sheldon, you cannot go there and say fastest growing economy and people cannot do these things, Sheldon. You understand me?
I'm smiling because the average Guyanese don't know anything about a vacation because they live hand to mouth, hand to mouth. They work and then they spend the money, goes right back on expenses, on food, on rent, on whatever they need to use to survive. That's what the money goes back to. And you're claiming that there's oil money there, but show me the oil money. Show me what it's being used for. Let the government bring all the records and expose it to the public. Let the public know exactly what's happening with the money from ExxonMobil. Let the government of Guyana do a disclosure disclose all the income that the Guyanese people are getting from all these natural resources. Let them do a disclosure, a public disclosure, disclose the accounting record, and let the people of Guyana be able to open those records and go through it and see whether or not it's legitimate. You might discover that a lot of those records that the Guyana government is using there, it's not even legitimate. It's illegal. There's a lot of padding of records. There's a lot of forgery and fraud and a lot of corrupt practices happening there, and it needs to be exposed to the public. And I propose to cure all of this. My proposal is that the people of Guyana go protest that ExxonMobil must go. ExxonMobil must go. PPP must go. If those two go, then the people of Guyana might be able to save their wealth and save Guyana from being impoverished any further by ExxonMobil. Wayne,
Yes.
it's now 9:55 p.m. and we're getting up to the time to close off on this program. Any other issue you would like for us to discuss before going as it relates to the impact of ExxonMobil behavior and conduct illegal activities in terms of contributing to the impoverishment of the people of Guyana?
Well, listen, and Sheldon, you made some good points and open a big can of worms, because for the first time I've heard someone asking ExxonMobil to go. And sometimes, that is what it takes, Sheldon. People just want to feel, and these large companies just want to feel like if you can't survive without them. Well, Guyana was there all the time, Sheldon. Guyana didn't just happen. We've been there all the time. Okay.
I think when one of the things that people don't know is a lot of the times the contracts between the government and these corporations can be breached. Contracts are meant to be broken. This is why there's court system to regulate whether or not a party should rightfully walk away from a contract. And if you see ExxonMobil is acting contrary to the terms of the agreement, which is that they must properly disclose their earning to the people of Guyana and that they must pay taxes on those earnings. And you see that ExxonMobil has breached that contract multiple times. Look at it. And if you breach a contract, the law says that the non-breaching party is free to walk away from the contract. ExxonMobil has also failed to pay their taxes, and the government of Guyana settled to take whatever ExxonMobil agreed to pay them, versus it's strictly enforcing the provisions of the contract and telling ExxonMobil if they refuse to pay, then they must pack up and leave. And the Guyana, people of Guyana has that prerogative to tell ExxonMobil that they must pack up and leave if they refuse to honor the provisions of the contract between the government of Guyana and the people of Guyana. So you have that prerogative. It belongs to the people of Guyana. So if the people of Guyana recognize that contract could be terminated, maybe they're going to get up and push that Afanali get up from his seat where he's sitting and arise from his sleep where he's sleeping and refuse to take care of the interests of the people of Guyana and get ExxonMobil packing. If they can't do right by the people of Guyana, send them packing. People of Guyana, arise, wake up, recognize that you have the right to ask that the contract be terminated because ExxonMobil has already breached that contract. Therefore, there's no opportunity to sit back and say, well, okay, they can continue. You have the right to terminate. Guyana is yours. It's not Afanali's country. It's not Barjagio's country, but it's yours.
That is so well put, Sheldon. That is so well put, because you've just reminded the people of Guyana that Guyana belongs to them. And Sheldon, I have a quick question for you, because, can the people actually have like a signed petition, that they can bring to the table, and ask for better conditions when it comes to this agreement with Exxon? Because what I've noticed also, Sheldon, is that there's a lot of international workers that is coming and work on the rigs. And if I would have been getting such a lopsided deal, Sheldon, at least I would have told them, hey, you cannot start extracting oil until you have this percentage of Guyanese trained and it's on your staff. So these deals, Sheldon, is lacking in a lot of different ways. And in all the ways that the deal is lacking, Sheldon, it is hurting the Guyanese people. Exxon has to change their practices. They have to change their posture. And look, Sheldon, we have an oversight committee called the Public Accounts Committee within Parliament that should be looking at the spending of the government. You don't hear nothing from them Absolutely nothing. Everything is silent. I think one of the biggest diseases in Guyana, Sheldon, is transparency. And transparency, Shalom, comes like for example, if you ask me to do something, I may be more transparent to you, Shalom, because you're a lawyer, compared to if the normal Joe asks me, hey, Wayne, could you do this to me? I'm going to wait my own time. You know, you have to hold people accountable in order to get results. And I feel like if the people of Guyana, Shalom, is a bit laid back, their posture is not a posture that says, hey, man, you know, if you guys are doing this, we need to know about it. You know, you just can't tender out oil blocks. We need to know who are the investors. You know,
I
Barry
think
Jagdale was on his press conference the other day and he was talking about how they tendered out, I think, 14 oil blocks, you know, and, you know, 8 of them was bidded on. And the others, the remaining 6, you know, there was no bids on those. So he tried to use us as an excuse, Sheldon, to say that, hey, you know, you guys think that soon as we put something out there, people come and jump all over it. Look, we have 14, you know, oil blocks out there or oil wells out there, you know, bidding it out. And we only had 8 of them bidded on. You know, listen, people of Guyana, Sheldon is right. We got to get this right. We need to, you know, get together within our community, Sheldon, because there's another thing. The black communities has been targeted by the PPP and they are poisoning the Afro-Guyanese communities.
Indeed,
Okay?
indeed,
And
indeed, Wayne. You
mhm,
know, Wayne, not to cut you, but Cheryl Pancham made a very good point. She said, Exxon is sleeping in bed with the government of Ghana, and that is so true because we've seen from time to time what is happening and how they're compromising with Exxon Mobil. They're constantly compromising. They're not even fighting with this company. Everything the company asks for, they acquiesce and they give it. So, when it's now 10:02 p.m., time is up. We've been here, we've rallied for the entire hour. It's a Friday night, and I don't want to keep our listeners here any longer. Thank you guys so much for being with us here tonight and listening. And you were good contributors. I've read some of your comments. Thank you so much. Thank you all. Thanks to all of you from 107.1 FM. Thank you so much for being our guests tonight and staying through the entire program with us. It was a pleasure to host this program. And I thank you guys so much for all your support also as it relates to my practice. Wayne, time is up on us. Just give you a quick closing remarks and then we're off tonight.
yes, Sheldon, this is going to be so brief. You know, listen, we need to be each other's keeper. You know, we need to hold the government accountable. And at the same time, we need to hold our leaders, whichever party it is that we support, or councillors within our village, or whomever it is, we need to start holding people accountable. And once you do that, you will find that people will execute in their duties. That's it for me, Sheldon. Over back to you to close out the show for tonight.
Thank you so much, Wayne. Thank you for being my co-host tonight. You did a great job. Thanks to everyone. Every one of you contributed with your comments or otherwise, or sharing the program, sharing the likes, or pressing the like button. And I encourage you, if you're here and you enjoy the program, just click that like button. It will cost you nothing. Thank you so much, guys. Have a good night and God bless y'all. We'll see you guys again on Monday with Mark Bench Chop. Thank you guys. Have a good night and enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thank you so much.